The air in the Greenville market that Sunday afternoon was a familiar blend of citrus and freshly waxed linoleum. A rhythmic, distant wail from a child in the cereal aisle was the only thing disturbing the calm. Camille Turner stood in the produce section, a study in quiet purpose. Her gray hoodie and jeans were a deliberate attempt at invisibility, a uniform of the unremarkable. Her earbuds were in, but silent, a prop to discourage casual conversation. For 3 weeks, this market had been a stage for her reconnaissance. She was watching, measuring, timing. The calm shattered with a bellow command. "Hey, you!" Officer Kyle Monroe, a man whose posture alone was a form of aggression, stormed down the aisle. At 6'1", he moved like a force of nature, his gaze locked on her as if she were a threat pulled straight from a B-movie. "What's in your purse?" he snarled, his voice a low gravel. Camille didn't flinch. She slowly raised an eyebrow, a silent question in her eyes. "Excuse me?" "What are you hiding?" he pressed, now close enough for her to smell the faint sweat and stale coffee on his breath. His badge was a sharp gleam against his dark blue uniform. Around them, shoppers paused, their casual brows replaced by the morbid fascination of a brewing scene. Camille's voice was a low hum of composure. "I'm not hiding anything. I'm buying fruit." Monroe didn't wait for a reply. He grabbed her wrist, a jolt of pain shooting up her arm, and twisted it behind her back. He shoved her hard against the cold edge of the produce display. Apples, freed from their delicate pyramid, rolled across the floor. One burst open on impact. The cold steel of a handcuff kissed her skin. A woman nearby gasped. A child's scream pierced attention, and the entire front of the store froze, all eyes fixed on the spectacle. "You think you can walk around here looking suspicious and not get checked?" Monroe's breath was hot on her neck. He pressed harder. "Let me guess, you left your ID at home." Camille didn't struggle. She didn't move. She didn't even look scared. Instead, her eyes went to the high corners of the store, to the silent, watchful eyes of the security cameras. "Sir," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "you're making a mistake." "Oh, I bet I am," he sneered, pulling her arm tighter. "That's what they always say. You're making a mistake. Like hell I am. You people always think you're above the law." It was then, just as he said the words, that everything changed. A sharp, clear voice cut through the air from the back of the store. "Officer Monroe, stand down." Monroe froze, his head snapping toward the source of command. A man in a crisp gray suit, his federal badge clipped to his chest, strode to the checkout line without breaking his stride. Calm, controlled, and utterly unblinking. Camille spoke again, softly, just from Monroe's ears. "Told you." But by then it was too late. Her name was Camille Turner, 35 years old. No badge on her chest that day, no partner at her side. Just faded jeans, a gray jacket, and a gaze that held the kind of stillness you earn from watching power misused too many times. Officially, she was a federal agent with the FBI's Internal Corruption Division. Unofficially, she was a quiet storm. Greenville was just another dot on an assignment list, but for Camille, this one was different. The system she was investigating didn't just smell rotten. It reeked. The name that kept appearing in every complaint, every whispered rumor, every anonymous letter to the Bureau, was Officer Kyle Monroe, a local cop, white, aggressive, dozens of accusations, harassment of black residents, unwarranted searches, sudden bursts of violence without body cam footage to back them up. Every report felt eerily similar. Single black mothers followed home, young black teens shoved against walls. People stopped for fitting a description that never quite existed. The Bureau couldn't act on rumors. That's where Camille came in. She rented a small house near a Walmart, posed as a teacher on sabbatical, a quiet newcomer. She baked, volunteered at the community center, and went on long walks to the neighborhoods Monroe liked to patrol. But every step she took was measured. Every glance was a data point. Every encounter with Monroe, from his lazy profiling to his thinly veiled threats, was documented. Her purse held a hidden camera. Her jacket collar concealed a mic. She had a federal warrant signed for every minute of her surveillance. For 3 weeks, she tracked his patterns. Monroe had a type, black women alone, especially at night. He'd roll up with casual authority, his smile thin and cold, and ask what they were doing in the area. If they pushed back even slightly, his demeanor would turn fast. One woman, terrified and off the record, told Camille he once made her sit on a curb for 45 minutes for loitering. Another said he made her empty every pocket of her gym bag in the rain. No arrests, no charges, just intimidation and silence. Camille needed more than stories. She needed undeniable proof. Video, audio, physical contact. A moment Monroe couldn't deny. So she planned it. She wouldn't trap him. She would let him trap himself. She knew his weekly patrol route near the grocery store on 9th and Marshall, knew he'd linger outside, scanning the parking lot, sometimes walking inside just to check things out. That afternoon, Camille dressed down. Gray jacket zipped, purse light, no makeup. She walked into the store, took her time, browsed the fruit, holding a red delicious apple up to the light. And she waited. Then she saw him, Officer Kyle Monroe, in uniform, entering with a young store security guard in tow. His eyes locked onto her, just as she predicted. The moment he yelled, "Hey, what are you hiding in your purse?" Camille didn't flinch. She didn't need to. The cameras were already rolling. His voice was loud enough, his intentions clear. She had him, exactly where she wanted him. Officer Kyle Monroe didn't see himself as a racist. That's what made him dangerous. He saw himself as tough but fair, the kind of cop who just knew when someone was hiding something. But to the people who crossed his path, especially those with dark skin and no audience, he was something else entirely. Camille had already seen enough to confirm a pattern, but she needed the town to see it too. Greenville had a way of swallowing complaints. People didn't speak up because they knew what happened when they did. Tickets for broken taillights, random home checks, code enforcement visits out of nowhere. Silence wasn't just fear, it was strategy. Camille went deeper. She posed as a jogger and let herself be stopped. No ID, just polite defiance. Monroe pulled up, asking what she was doing running through this part of town without earbuds or phone. She asked why that was suspicious. He muttered, "Don't play smart," and lingered until she backed away. She recorded it all. 2 days later, she shadowed a teenager Monroe had previously stopped, a 15-year-old who walked home from basketball practice every Tuesday. Camille followed at a distance until Monroe's cruiser turned the corner and slowed beside him. She couldn't hear the full conversation, but she saw the boy's shoulders slump, the quiet surrender. Monroe drove off without a word. The kid told her later, whispering, that Monroe said he looked like someone who robbed a liquor store last year. No name, no description. Just looked like that. It was Monroe's code. Camille reviewed dozens of past reports. Cases where the officer never filed paperwork, never recorded audio, and always claimed the stop was justified. One involved a woman cited for disrupting a sidewalk because she took a photo of her daughter near a patrol car. Another was fined for disorderly conduct after asking why Monroe had pulled her over for a taillight that wasn't broken. Each time, the victims had one thing in common: black, alone, and unarmed. This wasn't about crime. It was about control. Camille saw it clearly now. Monroe's authority wasn't used to protect. It was used to dominate. His badge gave him cover. His voice gave him power. And his target was always someone who couldn't fight back without making things worse. She documented his violations line by line. Unreasonable search, failure to read Miranda rights, lack of body cam usage, threats, and intimidation tactics. He used phrases like, "You people know your place," and "don't act like a victim." He didn't need to use the N-word. His actions said it louder. And yet, in public, Monroe played the part. He waved at cashiers, helped older white residents carry groceries, shook hands with the mayor, and smiled during church safety meetings. But Camille knew the truth, and so did others. They were just too scared to say it. Then something shifted. Word began to spread, quietly in corners of barber shops and in whispers after Sunday service, that someone was watching, that maybe, finally, someone on the inside was listening. A few of Monroe's past victims reached out to Camille, not knowing who she truly was. They saw her as a kind newcomer. One told her about being slammed against her car in front of her 6-year-old daughter. Another remembered how Monroe held his hand on his holster during a traffic stop. Just in case. Camille listened and promised nothing, just offered thanks, just her presence. She knew Monroe felt it too. His eyes lingered longer when he saw her in town. His tone was sharper, his patrols more erratic. He started stopping people he hadn't before, Mexican delivery drivers, Arab teens at the skate park, as if trying to prove something, as if he knew the mask was slipping and someone was pulling the string loose. But the most telling moment came one night. Camille parked near an empty lot and waited. Monroe's cruiser pulled up beside her. She kept her window down. "You live around here?" he asked. "I do," she said. "Something wrong?" He looked her over. "Just doing my rounds. A lot of unfamiliar faces lately." She met his eyes, calm. "Well, I hope they feel welcome." He leaned in slightly. "Depends who they are." Then he drove off. That was the last confirmation she needed. This wasn't a man confused about his role. He was deliberate, cold, practiced. He believed he was untouchable. Camille knew better. It happened in seconds. Camille stood at the produce section, pretending to compare apples, but her mind was calibrated like a wire set to snap. She knew Monroe's pattern, knew he liked control, liked to escalate when no one challenged him. But today she wasn't just recording. She was ready to push him past the line he'd always dance around. She could feel him before she saw him. The shift in the store's atmosphere, a silence where there had been casual grocery chatter, then the unmistakable bark. "Hey, what are you hiding in your purse?" Camille turned, slow, calm. No guilt, no panic, just mild confusion, like any shopper caught off guard. Her voice was even. "Excuse me?" Monroe was already advancing, boots heavy, his hand pointed, sharp. "You heard me. Open the bag." She kept her posture relaxed. "Why?" He stopped inches from her. "You've been standing here a while, acting suspicious." A few heads turned. A mother pulled her child closer. Someone began filming with their phone. Camille didn't move. "Are you accusing me of theft?" That's when his tone changed, lower, angrier. "Don't get smart with me." She could smell the aggression now, the kind that simmered under fake professionalism, the same tone she cataloged in audio recordings for weeks. Camille raised her hand slightly, not in surrender, but in clarity. "Officer, unless I've done something illegal, I'd like to continue shopping." That was enough. Monroe grabbed her wrist, twisting hard, too hard. Her fingers spasmed, and the apple dropped, rolling under the shelf. Gasps echoed. A child cried. An older man shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" But Monroe ignored him. He yanked Camille's arm behind her back. "I said drop it." Her cheek pressed against the metal rack. Her voice was muffled, but her mic caught everything, confirming excessive force. Full visual capture secured. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. But she turned her head just enough to see the ceiling cam above them, a direct line of sight. "Stop resisting." Monroe snapped. "I'm not resisting," she replied, clear, calm, pain leaking into her voice but steady. The store manager ran over, nervous. Sir, we didn't call anything in." She didn't set off the alarms. Monroe cut him off. "Back up." I said, "Back up." The manager stepped back, hands raised. Monroe pulled out his cuffs. That's when Camille spoke again, not loud, but with authority this time. "Every second of this is being streamed. Multiple angles, audio confirmed." Monroe paused. "What?" She turned her head, eyes burning. "I've been documenting you for 4 weeks. You just confirmed every pattern we suspected." He blinked. "What the hell are you talking about?" Camille exhaled slow. Then, still bent at the waist, she said into her hidden mic, "Special Agent Turner to SSA Grant. I'm confirming field escalation. Subject has crossed physical and verbal thresholds. Authorization proceed." The response came within seconds, not from the mic, but from the front of the store. A deep voice measured, calm. "You're cleared, Agent Turner." Monroe froze. Camille straightened, her shoulders sore, and turned. By the automatic door stood a man in a gray FBI windbreaker, mid-50s, stern, holding a badge up for everyone to see. Supervisory Special Agent Raymond Grant, he said, stepping forward. Step away from the agent. The entire store went silent. Monroe let go like he'd touched fire. Wait, she's not? What is this? Grant didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You're under federal investigation, Officer Monroe. Everything you've done over the past month has been documented under warrant. Camille pulled her sleeve down. Her wrist was already bruising. That includes this assault. Monroe backed up, looking around. Customers stared. Phones were still filming. This is entrapment, he said. She set me up. Camille turned fully to face him. You set yourself up. I gave you every chance to act lawfully. You chose otherwise. He stammered. She was acting suspicious. You called me a monkey in makeup last week, she interrupted, her voice cutting in. In your patrol car. We have the audio. His face went pale. Grant nodded to two agents at the door. They entered swiftly, reading Monroe's rights as they cuffed him, this time correctly, this time legally. He didn't struggle, just kept repeating, this is wrong, this is wrong. Camille watched as they walked him out. The badge he once flashed like a shield now looked small, powerless. Customers whispered. Someone clapped. Another put a hand over their mouth, stunned. Camille didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She adjusted her jacket and looked at the manager. Please preserve all security footage from today. A federal subpoena will arrive by morning. He nodded, stunned. Then she turned and walked out, calm, limping slightly. Another mission closed. Another truth exposed. But justice, that part was just beginning. The parking lot outside the grocery store was quiet now. The sirens were gone. The murmurs had faded. Only the sound of a lone shopping cart bumping against a curb remained. Inside the store, people were still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A white officer arresting a black woman. A silent, calm reversal of the entire narrative. They had seen something rare. Power held accountable. And they didn't even know her name. But the story was far from over. At FBI headquarters, the footage was already being reviewed. Multiple angles, 5 civilian recordings, 2 hours of audio, for weeks of surveillance data. All matching. Every microaggression. Every illegal search. Every verbal abuse. Every slip of Monroe's tone when he thought no one was listening. Camille had built the case like a brick wall. Solid, unshakable, unavoidable. Inside a conference room, Agent Raymond Grant stood with his arms crossed, watching the arrest scene again. Camille's voice was clear even under pressure. Every protocol followed. Every move timed. She hadn't just baited Monroe. She had mapped his behavior. So precisely he walked right into the indictment without realizing it. She entered quietly. No triumph in her step, just purpose. Grant turned. Well, executed, Turner. Camille gave a slight nod. It was time. He gestured to a seat. She didn't take it. They're booking him now, he said. Do you want to be present for the intake? She shook her head. That's not the moment I came for. Because this wasn't about seeing him fall. This was about everyone who never got to stand up. Monroe's lawyer made the usual arguments. Provocation, confusion, officer safety. But the audio said otherwise. The words monkey in makeup echoed through the courtroom like gunfire. The body cam footage he claimed wasn't working had been found, wiped by him. The subpoenaed store footage showed Camille complying, not resisting. The bruises on her wrist matched the force he used. Federal prosecutors moved quickly. Charges included assault under color of law, civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, and false reporting. The Department of Justice opened a broader inquiry into the Greenville Police Department. Patterns were emerging. Other officers who looked away. Supervisors who ignored complaints. A system that let Monroe rise unchecked. And still, Camille said little. She declined interviews, refused press coverage. She stayed in Greenville only long enough to finish her final report. But the impact was already rippling outward. Women who had never filed complaints came forward. One brought photos of bruises she'd hidden from her own family. Another described a traffic stop so degrading she had moved to another state afterward. And now, with Camille's evidence, they had the power to be heard. The day Monroe was arraigned, a small crowd gathered outside courthouse. Some held signs. Some held silence. All of them held a kind of fragile hope. For once, someone had stood in the same aisles they walked, worn the same skin they did, and didn't flinch when the badge came close. Inside, Monroe looked smaller than he ever had in uniform. His hands twitched as the charges were read. He didn't look at Camille once. She didn't need him to, because this wasn't about him anymore. Camille packed her things in silence that evening. The rented house already looked bare. Her gray jacket was folded neatly on the bed, the fake teacher's ID tossed into a drawer. She didn't take souvenirs from cases like this. They stayed with her anyway. Grant pulled up outside. She opened the car door, slid in, no words exchanged. A few miles out of town, he asked quietly, "You good?" Camille looked out the window. "Not good, just ready." He nodded. That was enough. Before the highway stretched out, Camille looked back once, just for a second. Behind her was a town that would tell the story for years. Not just a part where a racist cop was arrested, but the part where a black woman walked into a place where she wasn't supposed to belong and turned the system inside out. She didn't wear a badge that day, but she never needed one a week later. The town of Greenville was still buzzing, but not the way it used to. The headlines weren't about another incident. They were about accountability. Officer Kyle Monroe had been formally indicted on multiple federal charges: abuse of power, civil rights violations, falsifying reports, and targeted harassment of civilians. His mugshot, eyes bloodshot and face slack, spread across news sites and local bulletins with a weight he could never shrug off. He was suspended without pay, but that wasn't the part that mattered. The part that mattered was a ripple effect. Victims who had stayed silent for years, mothers, students, delivery drivers, night shift workers, began filing formal complaints. One woman brought a journal she'd kept since 2019, every entry detailing the fear she felt driving past Monroe's patrol route. Another brought a torn shirt she'd kept from the night. He shoved her into a wall and told her to watch her tone. Their stories, once dismissed, were now evidence. The Greenville Police Department was ordered into federal oversight. Leadership was shuffled, policies rewritten. Body cams now had random third-party audits. Community review boards were reinstated. Officers would no longer investigate their own. A system that had once turned away from justice was now forced to look it dead in the eye. And Camille? She was already gone. No press conference, no farewell meeting, just a silent exit, the way she arrived. She left behind no name on a mailbox, no business card in a drawer, just a short message for the bureau sealed inside her case file. Justice doesn't always arrive in uniform. Sometimes she shops for groceries, waits patiently, and knows when to let the guilty act on instinct. No one saw her leave, but they would remember her, especially Monroe. He sat alone in a holding cell the night before his court hearing, staring at his own hands. Hands that once held a badge like it was armor, now shaking, vulnerable, exposed. He'd told himself for years he was just doing the job, that people exaggerated, that the streets were dangerous and he had to stay in control. But now, in the cold light of a federal investigation, there was nothing left to twist. Every word he spoke, every time he grabbed without cause, every racial slur caught on the mic, it all stood as evidence, not just against him, but against a culture that allowed it. Camille never looked back. She was already heading to her next assignment. Another city, another name, another officer who thought he was above the law. But in Greenville, her silence lingered like a challenge, a reminder that the system may bend, but it doesn't have to stay broken. Not when someone's willing to walk into its heart and refuse to flinch.